sort of going back is, do you remember the first time, what you would consider to be your first live performance of any kind?
Oh, like my first concert, or the first thing that I ever did?
Anything. I mean, what you would consider sort of the real first. I mean, not like singing in front of like, two family members or something, but maybe like the first real being on stage.
Yeah, I took over for a girl singer, the lead singer of a band in college, and it was a really popular band.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been the keyboard player, and she quit, and I got kind of thrust into the front person role, and that was the first time I remember actually embracing it. I had never seen myself as a front person, and here we are playing at the most popular bar in college, and I'm filling in for, the girl that everyone is used to. And it was terrifying, and by the end of the night, it was a blast. And that actually, for me, was a little bit of turning the corner of getting out from behind my keyboard, which I was very comfortable at.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I mean, you kind of answered the question already, but did that sort of set the table for you then to be more comfortable being like that front line in front of people, and was that sort of not looking back turning point for you, would you say?
Yeah, I didn't really know what that was going to mean or where it was going to lead me. Obviously, in college, you're not really even thinking that far in advance. And I was getting, at the time I was getting my degree in classical piano, but I knew that I wanted to write songs and get my songs heard, and I believed I was the right person to sing them. And it took a while for it to become obvious, because people started cutting my songs before I did it, and it was Don Henley that ultimately said, "Look, you got to quit giving your songs away, and you need to record them yourself." So at that moment, I wasn't thinking, "Okay, I'm gonna springboard from this cover band into the world of being a recording artist / rock star." I just was kind of following the course in front of me.
Right. Okay. When you look back on those days of, coming out to the front and, performing in front of, obviously smaller, packed, but smaller crowds in the early part of your career, do you think there were important lessons that you learned as far as just how to be a live performer? Like things that were unique to having to deal with people that up close and in your face?
Absolutely. I feel bad for kids now who, when they go on a TV show and they immediately have 30 million people that are pre-ordering the record that isn't even made, and they haven't had an opportunity to figure out who they are or who they want to be on stage. It takes a while to figure it out. It takes a lot of mistakes, and I have the luxury of working out all the kinks without the annoyance of YouTube and cell phones and all that. Clearly, I've been around, longer than social media has. So I really got to hone my craft in front of small audiences, and the audiences got bigger, and along the way, got more professional and more clear about who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be and what I wanted to be. And I got to do that, in the shadows of touring and the exercise of playing live many nights in a row for many months.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any standout memories, like just crazy memories of things that happened, someone in the crowd, just anything that would be like totally unique to that atmosphere that would never happen now at a bigger show, but just something that represents the craziness of those times?
Well, the big standout for me was in 1996, I believe it was. I played at Woodstock, the second one, and that changed the trajectory of my career overnight. The exposure of that, and obviously well before YouTube, but the exposure of that and how people began to see me really shifted from that one gig, and it put me on the map. And from that moment on, I was able to play much bigger places, and now you don't really get those opportunities that often to really change things overnight. Without social media, I mean, now you can do a lot of things on social media, and millions of people can see it. But back then, there wasn't that. It was word of mouth, and what happens with word of mouth is you create a really loyal fan base of people that were there way back then before anybody knew you, and they discovered you, and they told everybody else about you, and there was a real loyalty created with word of mouth, and I still have a lot of those fans that are yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So looking back then to now, obviously you perform in front of, thousands instead of hundreds. What are some lessons? I mean, like, what are some things that, as a seasoned live performer, are tricks of the trade that are universally important, whether you're playing in front of 500 people or 50,000 people?
I can tell you what's important to me. I don't know if it's universally this way, but for me, I my best shows and the ones I feel like resonate the most are ones where I make eye contact with people. There was a few years in there, I think, when I was really, I'd been out for a long time. I was, just probably overexhausted. But I liked it when the lights were down and I didn't have to see people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I find now that even having cell phones up and people looking at their cell phones, you don't make that connection
Right.
that you used to make before there was something between you and the audience. And I really relish the opportunity to make a connection with people. That's really what music is and has always been about, is, changing the molecules.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite, if not your favorite venue, your favorite style of venue that you like to perform in?
Well, I mean, there are venues that are just mystical, like Red Rocks outside of Denver is just, it's a mystical place. It's Indian burial ground out there, and it's right in the middle of this gigantic rocks, and it's a beautiful place, and it's been there clear back to, I think, maybe 20s or 30s. It's been there a long time, and that's an amazing place. And the gorge out by Seattle, where the backdrop behind the stage is just miles and miles of what almost looks like the Grand Canyon, and it's just gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. And then there are places that are historic, like the Beacon and the Troubadour, places I love playing because you walk in and you feel that weight of what's been there before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned Don Henley as sort of an inspiration earlier in your career, but is there anybody who you actually toured with, saw and you watched each other perform live every night that maybe somehow affected or inspired your approach to being out there in front of people?
Well, I had the good fortune of, before I ever even got a record deal, touring with Michael Jackson as a backup singer.
Mm.
And then after that, I toured with Don. And it was really a good, a very effective case study in how to, different styles of touring. With Michael, that was a huge traveling circus of people, and there was the Eddie Hotel and the B Hotel, and there was, you didn't really fraternize with the artist too much, and every night show was exactly the same, almost like a Broadway production. Mm-hmm. And then touring with somebody like Don, where he would spend all of his time with us, and we got together, and we would go eat dinner together, and having that kind of familial experience. I think that resonated more with me, but getting to observe what makes all of these artists who they are and why they're as effective and successful. It was such a great, and still is a great thing to witness. Every time I go out on stage with somebody and I get to share the stage with somebody, from Levon Helm to Mick Jagger, I get to, rub up against greatness.
Cool. Do you still get nervous? And if so, like what situations specifically get you nervous?
Yeah, I mean, I get nervous. I get nervous when I'm singing somebody else's song and I've not really sung it before. I get nervous when there's somebody in the audience that, rightfully so, should make me nervous. I get nervous when it's live TV, and it's a new record. I've not performed the song that much, and I'm worried I'll screw up or forget the lyrics, or. But for the most part, after the count in, you're off and running, and you don't have the luxury of worrying. You just have to be in it.
Right. I'm always curious about people's answers to this question, but obviously you've had hits that people have expected you to play for years and years, and you've been playing for years and years. From your perspective, do you feel or fight any sort of maybe a bit of a burnout factor of playing certain songs, and is there anything that you can do to try to keep it fresh and genuine for yourself to perform?
Yeah, all I want to do is probably the biggest hits. That, and if it makes you happy, maybe every day is a winding road. But really, my first big hit was all I want to do. And I got really burned out on playing it on the first tour because the first tour was 2.5 years long. And we kind of revamped it, and I learned an invaluable lesson from that. And I probably lost quite a few fans. We've reworked it on stage to be sort of like a Jack Kerouac beat version of it. And I think we left a lot of people leaving, scratching their heads going, why didn't she play the hits? And, the reality is people have an experience that goes along with the song. It takes them back to where they were when they heard it, or they relate it to a certain time in their life, and they want to hear that version. And a little gratitude goes a long way. And that's the way I feel about playing the hits every night. I'm super grateful that the fact that all I want to do took me around the world, from Tokyo to South America. And I play it, and I try to play it pretty much exactly the way the record is, because I know that's what people want to hear. But I do have the luxury of having that hit, or if I get really burnt out and I want to drop one, I can get away with it.
Yeah.
And I do try to do that. I try to sub things out.
Take a break. Gotcha. Okay. Cool. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is the Outlaw Music Festival tour this summer. Real unique deal. What can fans expect as far as like just the unique vibe and the atmosphere of what this is going to bring to the table?
Well, I think that people are going to be transported by the fact that there are people up there still loving making music after 50 years, really. There's people who are still loving making music after 25 years, me. And if there are people up there making music and loving it who are just getting started, technically, like Lucas Nelson and the Promise of the Real and the Avett Brothers and Sturgill Simpson. They're new. They've acquired a lot of credibility and consistently are great, and they're going to be around for a long time. So it's, I think it's just going to be one of those shows where you're glad you were there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I ran through everything. You answered some things I didn't even get a chance to ask, so I appreciate that.
Awesome, fantastic. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for interviewing me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
No problem. You guys have a good day. Night.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Thanks.